Two Cars says right here, I hope Andrea didn't fumble ONDP's chances. It's hard to tell. My guess is the election is a year away. I highly doubt this one instance is going to have such an impact that it affects the election a year from now. That is my guess. So I'm less worried about that and more worried about just some sort of like the way people have talked about this, I guess. And so, well, I'll go through it. So the first thing that I want to do is play the clip. So this is the clip that everyone got upset about. I guess I should share it with you, Elron, if you wanted to watch along.
That'd be nice if you, yeah, I'd appreciate it.
And for those who don't know, like Elron probably doesn't know who the hell Andrea Horwath is.
Really don't. I do not.
Andrea Horwath is the leader of the opposition for the government of Ontario. So she is the leader of the NDP party at the provincial level in Ontario. And Doug Ford is the premier of Ontario. Now she is going to be responding to someone named Stephen Del Duca or Dusa. I barely know who this guy is. He is the leader of the Liberal Party, which only holds, I think, 8 seats in the Ontario legislature right now. So they're really, really low on that like list. I mean, they were the governing party before, and they got completely knocked on their ass during the last election, where the NDP is now the official opposition and the Conservatives are the government right now. So there's been a pandemic. Everyone knows that. And Andrea is referencing Stephen, the fact that Stevens, who's the leader of the Liberal Party, said that he wanted to mandate vaccines. And this was her response to Stephen. So we're going to watch it.
Unlike Mr. Del Duca, I don't take lightly people's charter rights. And so that's why what we're saying is rapid tests or your vaccination status and being vaccinated. So vaccination or rapid test before going to work. It's the very least we could be doing, we should be doing to make sure that folks are safe at school, that our students are safe at school, that our workers, our education workers and teachers are safe at school. I really think that we can't simply ignore that there are folks that are not going to get vaccinated, and I don't think that the right thing to do is just to shut them out, as it appears that Mr. Del Duca is prepared to do. So, I mean, I am disappointed, though, Paul, with the plan. I think it's a bit of, rolling of the dice, really, and our kids may be the ones, in fact, that paid the price, and I'm very concerned. There are things that could have been done. We just talked about the vaccines, but we still could have had smaller class sizes. The government is talking about, and Mr. Lecce is talking about things like HEPA filters, but where's the standard? So how do we know if any particular ventilation solution in any particular classroom or school is effective?
So I'll pause it here. We don't need to hear the rest. I mean, she pretty much said there all that we need to hear. I will say, like, I agree with her when it comes to the Conservative plan for opening up the school. It's pretty atrocious, and this idea that's like, they list standards of like improving like air quality, and they expect the schools to do better on that front, but don't tell you how much funding they're going to provide for it, or don't explain whether or not they've been actively trying to fix it yet. Like, you would think that maybe they should have been working on this a month, like more than a month before the start of the new school year. So fuck the Conservatives. I think we can all agree on that, right? But
like, they're probably not going to give any funding, right? Like, it's
no,
the funding to fix the ventilation is like $0.
No, the Conservatives have been fighting with the school system. I mean, right before the pandemic hit, the teachers were on strike, and it was a huge thing. And yeah, so because of that, Stephen Lecce, who is the Minister of Education, not good. None of this is good. Okay, so I agree with her on that. Conservatives suck. Cool. But she said that I don't want to mandate that teachers be vaccinated because I care about their charter rates. Which, I mean, this made her trend in Ontario. And it's also a really silly thing to say. For one, like, we have vaccine mandates in this country. For example, I had to get a meningitis shot, I think, before I could access high school. or it might have been an earlier level of school, like junior high school. I can't remember, but either way, like there's layers of like vaccines that you need to get before you can enter certain parts of your school. Like vaccine mandates are themselves not against the charter. I don't even know what the hell she's talking about. So a lot of people reacted to her very like aggressively, like, "What are you doing? Come on now, how dare you do this?" And Tukar said that it's a sign that the leadership is awful. Part of me goes, I don't think that this was a great thing, but like, and I will frame this as politely as I can, because I'm not a huge fan of Andrea as the leader in Ontario. I know that's like, for like a lot of partisans are probably going to get mad at me at saying that. I definitely prefer her over all the alternatives, but like, if there was another election for leadership of the party, I probably wouldn't vote for her. That's just where I stand, although I would vote for her to be premier if she's the option compared to the other leaders of other parties. I just want an excuse to replace her. Yeah, exactly. So like I have my reservations of her as a leader. The other thing is like, I just think if you compare this to other leaders, though, this one mistake, is this worse a mistake than what any other leaders have like made? Especially in terms of like, okay, so she made this mistake, and the best you could say is she walked it back. So this was her statement the next day when this was trending and everything was going bonkers, right? So she goes, "I fully support mandatory vaccination in healthcare and education based on science and public health priorities. I should have made that position clearer much earlier in support of the health and safety of the most vulnerable among us, seniors, people with disabilities, people who are sick, and children who can't yet get their vaccines. On Wednesday, I made a mistake suggesting a mandatory vaccine policy during a global pandemic should take a back seat to charter rights. I regret the comment. I was wrong. My fight and my focus must be on keeping people healthy and safe. This unprecedented time requires unprecedented actions. It's time to make sure every education and healthcare worker gets the protection of a vaccine. Now, let's work together to convince Doug Ford." Okay? So she walked it back. And the reason why I want
Hello, Jody. It looks like you're doing a showdy and it's better than Cody. Sub-anniversary surprise times. Have a great stream.
Thank you, Nick. I do better than which Cody? Which Cody is it better than? I need answers. But thank you. So what I want to say to this, it's like I really appreciate someone who can at least admit that they make mistakes. Okay? And I'll elaborate further on that in a second, because somebody tweeted, so there's this famous person. I don't even know if I can consider them famous at this point, but we'll highlight them right here. So we got this guy right here, Danko Jones, all right? We were talking about Ed the Sock before. Now we got a Danko Jones. And for those who don't know, Danko Jones, I feel like he was big in the 90s or 2000s. He was like an alternative rock singer dude. I remember his music used to play all the time. I was never a huge fan of Danko Jones to begin with, but it's not terrible. I've got no opinions about Danko Jones beyond that. But I saw his tweet, and this was his tweet in response to what Andrea Horwath did, okay? It says, "And now, for the first time ever, I will not be voting NDP. Don't want Ontario turning into Florida. Mr. Del Duce will get my vote." Now, I have an American in the chat with me. Do you think what Andrea Horwath suggested in the previous clip would turn Ontario into Florida?
A lot of steps you have to go through to become Florida. Let's be real here. There's a lot of things you got to do to become Florida. Like you could say, like, vaccine hesitancy. That's a step on the path to Florida. But I feel like you got a few moments before like the crocodiles invade, and you have like gator guys going out there. You got some time. Yeah. It'll be okay. It's all right, Danko Jones.
Tukar says, "Sounds like a liberal looking for an excuse to exaggerate." Yeah, remember the thing is, he said he's voted NDP his whole life. So, but it does make.
What is it with these people that are always like, I was this way my whole life, and then this one minor thing happened. Whole mindset changed. Whole fucking thing out the window. Fuck it. You have to pick a new political party.
Well, that is basically my critique of him. I said Andrew's position on vaccines for teachers sucks, but one bad policy doesn't mean we are turning into Florida, and also doesn't make the Liberal Party any better. One issue voting is a sign of political ineptitude. And I did that because I didn't think he was going to respond to it, but he did. He responded to me directly. But it is like, the reason why I said it's a sign of political ineptitude is like the way that you framed it. It's like, imagine, it makes me think that he voted NDP his entire life merely because it was like a team sport and not because he had any like ideological or predisposition to be voting for NDP, such that this one policy, which if anything is like not really an ideological policy, but this one thing is sufficient for him to go, no, I'm out. I want to vote for the Liberals now.
We've been fucking dealing with this for like the last 4 years over here in America. Fucking all these fucking people online saying like, oh, I don't like the SJWs, so I'm going to abandon democracy and vote Trump. It's like, well, maybe you are politically inept if that's the way you view the world.
Yeah. No, it's political ineptitude. Nick, Danko Jones is some singer. He was a solo artist, a musician. It made like, I want to say he made alternative rock. If anyone else remembers Danko Jones, the thing is, I remember there was one song in particular that was huge when I was like growing up. And it was like big in Canada. And it used to play on 102.1 The Edge, which came out of Toronto. And beyond that, can't remember a damn thing about Danko Jones. So. But that's its existence. So he responded to me. He goes, during a pandemic, one must watch carefully how leaders carry themselves. Dealing with vaccines this loosely, with the Delta variant about to run wild, is the real ineptitude here. And there's an element in which I agree with him, in that, like, yes, does this show some a lack of savvy, a lack of consideration on this one point? Yes, 100%. And I think it is worth criticizing Andrea for. But here's the interesting thing. We have that response by Andrea where she walked back her comments and said she supports a mandate for teachers. Okay? Now, this was done, I think, before the walk back, or maybe like around the same time as the walk back. But it's still like, isn't that a sign of leadership as well? Like, when I would prefer my leaders to respond to criticism correctly and change course and be open to people criticizing them such that they do the right thing. Okay? So, like, is it like, tell me where the flaw in leadership there is. Like, I don't know. It's just so weird. And then the other thing is, how do we know Del Duce is a good leader? The guy, I mean, so far he's already had scandals. There was one scandal where he basically was copying the NDP platform for something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but he basically stole word for word what Peggy Sattler was doing, who's an NDP member in London, and basically took her work and used it as his own, being like, look what the Liberals are doing. And it's like, no, the NDP has already been doing this. You're trying to like steal our stuff. So it's like, how is that like for him to just sit here because of this one thing and go, therefore, her leadership bad, his leadership good, is so fucking silly. Just so fucking silly. And that was the Oh yeah, so there's one more go-to. So then I said Del Duce took credit for policies proposed by NDP women, something I just said, which I would argue is also not something a leader should do. I mean, if you want to talk leadership, it can't be over one issue. All politicians fail that metric. This is pathetic, bud. And then he goes, the one issue governing all our lives is the pandemic and how we're going to get out of it, bud. And she's not even going to be elected for a year. If that. Right? It just gets to a point where it's so silly. And so I wanted to comment on this only because like I feel like this is something that a lot of people do, and it's so frustrating, which is this sort of like take my ball and go home attitude of like, well, you didn't do everything I want, party. I'm going home. And these are the same people that like don't show up to try to fix the party. You know, like I never saw Danko Jones at an NDP convention. Hello, that's amazing. You know, I never. It would be one thing if a lot of the people who make that argument and they get mad and like cross their arms and storm out. It would be so nice if they actually showed up and tried to do things instead of doing this like backseat complaining. When it's like you can affect policy, just get involved. But then it's like like Two Cars mentioned the fact that he's probably a closet liberal. Well, like of course, like why would you think like if you were voting NDP because you care about things like labor, like housing, like all these things that NDP are supposed to support, and we can quibble about whether they do it effectively or not. We did a show that should be posted on YouTube soon about the NDP not living up to their potential, and so that is a just criticism. But it's like it's different than criticizing them and then joining the liberals, right? As if the liberals are going to be any better on that front, because the liberals aren't just not living up to their potential; they actively side with corporations, businesses. Continue to flout their promises and ignore any progressive base at all. They're centrist and they're terrible, and I hate them. So, the other thing I want to add on that is just you get this attitude sometimes as well by people to the left who drop out and don't want to support the NDP. And the thing is, you don't have to support the NDP in terms of like 100% being there and working so hard to get people elected. I get it. But then it's like, what else are we going to do right now? Like, it would be one other thing if we had something else viable to fight for. And at least it's the same thing of like voting for Biden rather than doing nothing at all. In that a vote for Biden, in many ways, has materially helped people more than the Trump administration did. And as much as like, is he living up to the potential of doing even more? No, he's failing on a lot of metrics. Better than Trump? Sure. So like it's like how to balance that critical support. I feel like a lot of people, party affiliation is like an essential identity thing where they're like, I am an NDPer and I'm an NDPer for life, or I am a Democrat, and it's like part of their personality. And so an identity. So that a lot of like left-leaning people who are like, their identity is not the NDP, so they don't want to like support them in any capacity. But it's like, to me, it's never a question of identity. I could care less about identity. I'm not an NDPer. I vote and help the NDP out of necessity because they're the only option on the table right now. And so you need to divorce it from identity because yes, the NDP does a ton of shit that I hate. And I am vocal all the time on this platform about how much they do things that annoy me. Like this annoyed me. She should have just not done this because now I have to like talk about it and everyone else is criticizing her, and maybe it will affect people to leave the party. And so it's like, I'd rather she just do better, you know? So like, be critical, but like, I don't know, don't take it so to heart that like you're wrestling with some sort of internal contradiction because the party isn't living up to everything that you wish it would. Unless you have some other like idea. If you think voting for a different party would be better and you have reasons for why, if they have chances and whatnot, I'm open for discussion there too. But I think when it comes to at least the potential for more left-leaning policies, the NDP is the best that we have right now. But I'm open for argument on that. Anyways, that was the end of that. I guess I'm going to finish what Tukar said here. When I'm canvassing, I get better results when I shit talk the NDP, but say it's the best we have because the others are. And you know what? That's true though. I mean, like it is the way that it is, you know.
Hello, my rebels. Hello, my rebels. I'm a good boy. I'm a weirdo.